Hello everyone, I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which will be presented by myself. My name is Abby, and I also have some colleagues on hand to answer your questions along the way today. Today we're going to be going back to basics and looking at backing up your data and checking the health of your data within your Sage 50 accounts software. Before we begin, for those who are regular to our webinars, we'll be aware of how our sessions are run. For those who are new joining us, just a brief explanation of how it works. What you will see is that you will be placed on mute when you join. That is so you cannot speak directly to us during the webinar, and you will not be able to unmute yourself, but will not impact your ability to hear us today. If you do have any questions, however, you can use the questions panel on the right-hand side of your screen by clicking the option that looks like a little speech bubble with the question marks in the middle. This will open up the panel where you can send your questions across, where one of my colleagues will be able to answer for you. We do also have a handout for today. You can do this by clicking on the button that looks like a little document with a folded corner. We would recommend downloading this as it does have some clickable buttons to some links on our help centre. Please be aware this won't be available to download once the session has ended. So this is what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to start by why is it important to back up your data, how to take a manual backup, how to restore a backup into the programme, how to manually check your data without taking a backup, what the scheduled backup function is, and then I will summarise what we have covered on today's session. So before we move on, before we start delving into the backup process and what it's all about, we want to know how often you back up your data. Now this may depend on how much you are processing, so we want to know what you typically do. So is it at least once a day, once a week, once a month, before a big process, or never? There's no right or wrong answer, so don't worry. It's just so we can get an idea of how you're using the programme. We usually rate to get around 70%, so just get those votes in for us. Coming in quick there. Okay, we've got those about 70% there. I'll just share those results with you as well. So a majority of you do back up once a day. That's great. But like I say, it's not gospel. You can back up as much as you want or as little as you want, but we do usually recommend once a day. Okay. So we'll move on to the importance of backing up your data. So the process of a backup takes a copy of all the files that makes up your company, including logon name and passwords. And what it does is it consolidates them into one compressed file. This can only be accessed by restoring the backup into the Sage 50 accounts program. So you must have a copy of the program to be able to restore it in. Some scenarios where we recommend taking regular backups. So if a process does not go as expected, something interferes with the year end halfway through and you end up with errors. You have reconciled a VAT return accidentally or incorrectly, as although individual transactions can be reversed, you cannot reverse the whole VAT return process. And lastly, where you are importing into the program, you could import hundreds of lines and half of them could be incorrect or duplicated. So as long as nothing else has been processed, you could restore back to the import. We do have specific sessions specifically for important records coming up on the 14th of March if you want to get registered for that one. Another example would be disaster recovery. So computer breaks down or you end up with a virus, leaving you unable to access the Sage software. And if your data becomes corrupt and the errors are unfixable, you will be required to restore to an error-free backup. The reason for this is because the data files on your computer have become damaged, so this is why it's always important to be frequently checking the health of your data. So the importance of backing up your company is ensuring that your data is backed up at least once a day, depending on the amount that you process. So if you process every day, then back up every day. If you process once a week, then process once a week. Sorry, back up once a week. The last thing you need in the event of one of the examples I've mentioned happens and there's a lot of reprocessing to be done. So for example, the backup you've done was from last week and Joe Bloggs has processed over 200 transactions, a bank rec and a VAT return. Like I said earlier, once a day is optional, but it's something that we strongly recommend as a minimum, as we do not store backups of your company, so we don't hold copies of your data. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take us into my software and I'm just going to go through some more information regarding the backup. Okay, so I'm going to just go into the backup window. So I'm going to go to File in the top left, and I'm going to go into the backup option here. So I'm just going to continue in there. So as you can see, it's actually saved the last options that I ticked when I last did the manual backup. So if you've ticked certain options, or if you've just ticked one option, it will save that for the next time you do a manual backup. So what I'll do is I'll just untick them all. And I'll start with the first one, so the data files only. So this is normal day-to-day processing. You've got transaction attachments. So that's any documents that you've added to the batch supplier invoice. You've got reports and layouts in here. So if you've made any changes to customize layouts and reports. You've got record attachments. So record attachments is if you have any attachments to the customers, suppliers, products, bank, nominal, departments and projects. You've got image files. So that's if you've added an image file to your products or service record. You've got company archive. So that's when you've taken a company archive, you might have done that year end or when you've done your clear audit trail. And then you've got the T-mail database. So if you still use this function, you can also tick that one as well. So normally you will be doing the data files only as standard. We only need to select the other options only when it's relevant. So you do not want to be backing up reports and layouts every day when you've added a logo or changed your bank details on the layout or your invoices 2 years ago and have not made any amendments since. Or another example would be including the company archive, which hasn't been taken since the year end, and that could have been 6 months ago. And you've been taking a backup, including that archive every single time. By doing that, you'd be just taking up unnecessary space on your PC. Another good thing as well is you can specify, you don't always have to include data files. So for example, if I just wanted to do a reports and layouts, I could just tick reports and layouts. So if someone needed a copy of one of your customized layouts or reports, you could send that back up to them. But if you're going to do that, make sure that you do untick your data files, as that would overwrite. So make sure that one is unticked if you are going to do that option. When you do a full backup, you can use, this is one that's really useful if you've, say, for example, if you're a single user, you've got a new machine and you want to move your Sage to this new computer. If you just take a full backup of your company, and when you've installed Sage on your new machine, you would just restore from that backup, and that's all you need to do, and that's you backup and running on that new machine. For this example, I am just going to do a data files only backup. So I'm just going to leave that one tick, and that's just purely so it's a little bit quicker for us today. I'm also going to call that data files only as well. And I'll just click OK. I'm just going to say, do you want to check your data? And I'm going to click yes. And it's telling me I've got nothing to report on those data files. So it's telling me there I've got nothing there. I'm going to click close. And we'll just let this backup run. There we go. The backup has been successful. So I'll click OK on there. And that's my manual backup done. There are various parts of the program, such as big processes, where it'll give you the option to do a backup as part of the process. So one example would be if I go into VAT and I go to run a VAT return. The first step is to take a backup. So the program presents you with that option. Another part of the program, you'll also see it as well, is if we go to Tools and then into Period End, then we go into the Year End option as well. So you can see there I've got my check data, my chart of accounts, and I've got my backup as part of that process as well. So it's in various parts of the program that we recommend it takes place. Okay, so before I demonstrate restoring a backup, I just want to cover some more information first. I'm just going to pop back to my slides there. So we're going to talk about when you might restore in a backup. So for example, you might have run a clear audit trail up to an incorrect date, or you've reconciled a VAT return incorrectly. By taking a backup prior, it enables you to go back to that point in time and redo. But be aware, anything that was entered after the backup was taken will have to be reprocessed. So it might be transactions, bank recs, anything that you've added into the program. If you are going to restore over the top of live data, please do make sure that you do take a backup prior as well, but please do this with caution. Additionally, if your data is held over a network or on remote data access, if you do restore a backup and overwrite the live data, it will overwrite it for everyone. If you have a multi-company license with us, which you can find in your Help and About page under License Information, you can create a new company by restoring in from a backup file. So for example, you might want to try an unfamiliar process with your own data, so your own records and transactions, but you didn't want to risk doing it in your live data, or you do have other people working on the company at the same time. You could restore in a backup as a separate company and then delete the extra company afterwards. When you restore in a backup, on the backup description box, it will tell you what is included in that backup. So for example, whether it was data files only, or if it includes reports and layouts. And lastly, once the backup is restored in, you will need the login details that existed at the time of the backup was taken. As I've mentioned earlier, it copies the files that it holds on the login details. So if they have changed since then, you will need to enter all details. Or if your user did not exist at the time the backup was taken, so you might not have been at the company at the time, you will need to find credentials that did exist. If you do not have your own login details or the manager user details either, we do have a process in place to get access to the manager details. All you would need to do is contact our support team for that. Okay. So before I move on to the demonstration of restoring a backup in, I just want to show you an example of restoring a backup restoring in a prior backup. So if a backup was taken, let's have a look, say on the 2nd of February, and then on the 3rd, you process 200 transactions. On the 4th, you do a bank reconciliation. On the 5th, you process another 50 transactions. And then on the 6th, you add 10 new customers and 1 supplier. And then on the 7th, you run that VAT return, but accidentally reconcile when you weren't supposed to. Because there was only a backup taken on the 2nd, everything that was done since the 2nd has now gone. No longer exists in the program. So if backup was taken at the end of every day, instead of having to restore a backup from the 2nd, you could have restored a backup from the 6th, and all you wouldn't have had to do anything else. So that's why it's really important to be, if you're processing every day, doing your backup every day. So what I'll do now is I'll go back to my program and I'll just show you what that looks like. So we've already taken the backup. So I'm going to do is I'm just going to enter a customer record so I can show you what that looks like in real life. So I'm just going to go to customers. I'm just going to go to new. And I'm just going to call this test. And I'm going to save that. So I'll close out of that window. And if I scroll down, you can see that's the customer record I've just created. If I now go to restore in, so you go to file in the top left and then into restore, I get this window here. So if I was to browse, and so you can see there's my backup that I did earlier, so there's my data files only. If I just select this one, just to give you a brief explanation here. So if I restore this in, you can see here, it tells me what that backup includes. So it includes data files, reports, layouts, and company archives. So that would, so like I say, like that would tell you exactly what was included in your company, in your backup, sorry. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to restore my data files only, just so it's a little bit quicker for us today. If I select the right one there. Yeah, so it's telling us now there, the one I've selected is data files only. And it also tells me what version it is and where it's going to be restoring to as well. If I just click OK on there, it's going to give me a warning. It's going to tell me that it's going to overwrite my data. Are you sure you want to continue? So it does give you a warning before you proceed as well. So I'm just going to click yes on there. And we'll just let this restore in. There we go. So the restore has been successful. So if I click OK, it's going to ask me to log in. So I'm just going to log in with my details. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it might be that these might be old login details of when the backup existed, or like I say, your user needs to have existed at that time. So I'm just going to put my password in and I'm going to click login. And that's that restored in. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go straight to customers. I'm going to show you, because that backup was taken before I entered that customer record. You'll see now I no longer have a test customer in the program. So it takes us back to a point in time of when that backup was taken, where I actually entered that customer record afterwards. Okay. So if we move on to the backup, so if we move back onto the manual check data, so once you've restored a backup in, always check the data to ensure that your backup that you've restored is error-free. So before I show you how to manually check your data, I just want to talk about this in more detail. So just to let you know, before we do cover the information on this slide, we will not be covering how to fix errors in your data. Due to the sheer amount of errors, it wouldn't be possible for us to cover them all. If you do find that you have errors and are unable to follow the guides on our help centre, then please contact our support team. So today, I am just showing you how to take a manual check data without having to run a backup. Okay. So the check data process checks your data files for any issues and then categorizes them into errors, warnings, and comments dependent on the severity. So there might be occasions where you want to check the health of your data throughout the day, but you might have a large data set. And once the check data process is completed, then you have to sit and wait for the backup to complete afterwards, which might not be necessary. So you can find the check data option by going to File, then Maintenance, and then the check data / last results. Last results is so that you can, if you've already checked the data already, maybe like on that day, that afternoon, and you want to go back and see what the results were again, you can just click last results rather than running the check data process again. So you can check the data without having to take a backup. You can access whilst other users are logged in if this option is turned on, so that's if you have a multi-user license. And also, depending on the version that you're using, there will be an option to either fix the errors with the click of a button within the software, or if the version does not show the repair option, there will be a link to our help centre for quick access to get the support, or you can contact our support team for more information. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pop back to my software again. And we're going to go to the check data option. So as I mentioned on the slides there, we're going to go to File in the top left. We're going to go to Maintenance this time. And this is the window that you've seen on the slides earlier. And all you would do is you would click Check Data. So again, I've still got no problems to report. When you restore a backup in, always check the data. Make sure that the backup that you've restored in is definitely error-free. So that's how you would do that. You would restore your backup, you would log in, and you would go to File, Maintenance, and then Check Data, which is exactly what I've just done there. So no problems to report. So I'm just going to click OK on there. Then it's going to give me this window here. So if I had any errors, warnings, or comments, it would tell me I might have 2, I might have 15 warnings, and I might have 3 comments, for example. Warnings and comments are not a concern, but still recommended to be addressed. The focus should always be on if there's any errors. Those always should be fixed as soon as possible. Again, depending on your version, you will have a repair button. If that, like I say, depending on which version you have. You also have the link. So in older versions, you might have a help center link down here. In the version 29, we have the help center up here. If the errors are unfixable, you may need to locate an error-free backup, which is what I'm going to briefly show you in the using the schedule backup option. So I'll be showing you that part shortly. So that is the manual check data. So if you just want to check the health of your data without taking a backup, as your data set was quite large and may take some time to do both processes, this is the process that you follow. We do recommend that whenever you are taking a manual backup, to check the data regardless. So if it prompts you to check your data when you're doing a backup, always do that as well. Okay, so we're going to move on to the schedule backup now. So the benefits of the schedule backup and how it works. So it automates the process, takes a backup of more than one company at the same time. It's stored on the C drive of the PC where the data is stored, but the PC must be switched on as Sage does not have to be open. It automatically checks your data as well, so that helps identify when data corruption has occurred. And only the manager logon details can access this feature. So this option is set up automatically and should be used alongside manual backups and not as a replacement, as if the machine where the scheduled backups are going to is switched off, then the scheduled backup will not take place. So for example, if you've left work early and shut off your machine before the automatic backup is ran, so just be aware of this. It might be worth allowing your scheduled backups to go to your C drive or your C drive or server, and then do your manual backups to a USB or external hard drive, giving you the peace of mind as if your PC was to break, you had the external drive with those manual backups on to get you back up and running as quick as possible. But what I'll do now is I'll demonstrate how to navigate and change the settings within this window. So I'll just go back to our software. We'll just close the manual backup. Check data, sorry. So if you go to File in the top left, you'll see Schedule Backup option. Again, if you do not see this option, you are not logged in as the manager login credentials. So you need to be logged in as manager to be able to see this option. So we'll just open this up here. So we'll start with the overview. So you can see I've got 4 companies set up in my program there. So it's telling me that there's no users currently logged in at the moment. It's got no problems to report, so no errors, warnings or comments to report on. And it also tells me when the scheduled check data was last done and the backup as well. Okay, so if we just move to the settings tab. So you can see, so this option is set up automatically, so you do have to come in here and turn it off. And all you would do is you would just untick those options. As default, this is set as 5 o'clock. I've changed mine to 3:30, sorry. So if you finish work before 5, you might want to come in and change that to earlier. You can also change this to run more than once a day. So you can get it to run, for example, every 3 hours, and you want it to start, for example, you might want to get it to start at 7 a.m. So that will do a schedule check data and a backup in the background every 3 hours starting from 7 o'clock. You can also back up multiple companies. So you can see all 4 of my companies are ticked here. You've also got file types to include in the backup as well. So accounts data by default is ticked. We would recommend leaving it as just that and back up the other options when necessary when you do your manual backup. You've got your backup location, which is this one here. So this will depend on your data path where these backups go to. The easiest way to identify where these scheduled backups are going is to go to Help along the top in your program and then into About. And then in the top left-hand section, you've got Data Directory. If it says C:\\, then the backups are going to be held locally on your machine. If it says anything else, for example, it might be Z:\\, or computer name \, then this will be held on the C drive of a different machine. So you might have a server machine that holds your data and all your other machines connect to that one computer. Moving on to the check data results as well. So I'm just going to click no for there. So check data results. So because it's only Tuesday, I've not actually had any that's run yet. So what you can do in the top right-hand corner, you can change this from this week to, could be this month, this year, or all time. I'm just going to put all time. So you can see I've got all my companies in the list. It's telling me what version I'm on. And it's telling me what date and what time they were taken. The next three columns tells me whether it had any errors, warnings, or comments. And it also tells me what the last transaction number as well. You can see in this status column, it also tells you whether, so like for example, the green tick, this means that I've got nothing. So I've got nothing to report on, so it's clean. If it's got a yellow warning sign, then I've got some warnings. If it's got a grey little speech bubble, that means I've got some comments in there. And you can see here on my Prosper Flower arrangements here, this one here, I've got 2 errors and it's telling me there I've got a little red exclamation mark. So it's a lot quicker to be able to identify if you need an error-free backup. So in terms of this feature, it is extremely useful if you do have unfixable errors and you need to identify that error-free backup. You can come in here, you can check the results, you can locate that error-free backup. It'll tell you where the backup is. So you can just go into Backup Files tab and it'll tell you where to locate that backup. And it'll get you back up and running as well. Okay. So if we just come back to my slides there. So we'll just close this down. We'll come back to the slides. So I'm just going to summarize what we've covered on today's session. So Sage does not store any copies of your data, so you need to be taking regular backups of your companies. You can select to do a full backup or specific areas. You can check your data without having to do a backup. You can restore over the top of live data or into a new company, but this does overwrite live data back to the point of when the backup was taken, so use this with caution. Strongly advises backup at least once a day as a minimum. Frequency is based on how often you are processing. So as I mentioned, daily processing, backup daily, you process once a week, you backup once a week. The scheduled backup runs the process in the background and also checks the data when the machine is switched on. So Sage doesn't have to be open, you don't have to be logged into any of the companies. Your machine just has to be on and it runs in the background. And the schedule option can also help identify when errors have occurred in the data. I have also put some helpful links on the side there, so they'll take you to the topics that I've covered today on our help centre. So this moves me nicely on to upcoming webinars as well. So we'll have some key topics to cover, as you can see on the slides there. So we've got Company Archive that takes place tomorrow at 2 p.m. So that covers what an archive is, how and when they're created, and how to access one as well, and how they can be utilised to its full potential as well. We also have the VAT return on Thursday at 10 a.m. So that's just giving you some advice and support on how to reconcile your VAT return and submit it online. We do have some upcoming on the right-hand side there as well. So I've got some customer records, remittances, important records, user management, and nominal records as well. As you can see, I've also included a registration button as well, so you can click on that and this will take you to our help centre where you can find webinars for accounts. Alternatively, you can access as well via your programme on the home page. So I'll quickly just show you where to access that. So on your home page, you scroll down, you can see you've got a section here, free webinars, so you can access it from your home page. Also as well, just kind of the information that I've covered today, you have got a section on looking after your data as well. Make sure it's in good health and using your maintenance tools as well. So what I'm going to do is we do have one more poll I want to just cover with you guys. So I'm just going to give you those. So we just want to know which webinar topics you're likely to attend. So we're trying to get an idea of the level of interest on a few of our potential upcoming webinar topics. If none of them pique your interest, let us know in the chat if you have any ideas that are not currently shown. So please pop them in and my colleagues will be able to collate that information for us. There may be topics that we've not covered, or ones that you've not done before or you've not seen for a while. You know yourself where your knowledge gaps are, so get those suggestions in and you'll more than likely find that you're not alone. You just need that extra support from us. So we do have allocating transactions, stock journals, custom fields, bill of materials and quotations. Keep those answers coming in. They are multiple choice as well, so you can select more than one. Okay, I'll close that down now. And I'll just share those results with you just so you can see. So you can see a lot of them, a lot of you guys have selected allocating transactions. As much information as we can collate as possible would be fantastic. So if you do have any suggestions, get them in the chat as well. So before we move on this, I'm just going to cover a bit of Sage Member. So I'm just going to give you some more information kind of about this and what's included. So we offer more than just software. We offer great solutions to help your business flow and develop by bringing you as our customer into the Sage community and connecting you with brilliant industry experts. As you can see, you can get access to exclusive benefits such as masterclasses, learning, community forums, and much more. I'm not going into too much detail, but if you would like to know more, there is a link for the exclusive benefits, which is clickable if you have the handout downloaded. There is another slide with more information on the Sage member classes, as well as if you are wanting to check this out. We do have season 1 and season 2 already available online. So that brings us to the end of today's session. Please feel free to stay around for the next couple of minutes or so. If you are waiting for an answer to a question or have any further questions to ask, just a reminder, we are not able to answer all your questions today, but you are more than welcome to visit our help centre where you can find most answers to your queries. If you've got what you need today and want to leave the session, you will receive an email in around an hour or so with links to both our webinar schedule and today's recorded session for you to refer back to. If you could also complete the short survey you will receive at the end after the session, as all feedback is really greatly appreciated. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put myself on mute, just make sure that all the questions have been answered. And if there's anything that I can assist with, I'll be back shortly. Okay, so majority of the questions seem to have been answered. So what I'll do is I'll wrap this session up. I want to say thank you to my colleagues who have been on hand today to answer your questions. Thank you to all for your participation. Just a reminder, we have got plenty of sessions over the next couple of weeks, so don't be shy and get registered. I want to say thank you and take care.